There is a question that arrives quietly, usually sometime after 50. It comes not in words, but in small observations. The observation that recovery from a long walk takes a day longer than it used to. That the skin does not spring back quite as readily. That hair seems thinner when gathered between fingers. That mental clarity, once taken for granted, now feels more variable. These observations are often dismissed as simply aging, as though growing older were a single process with uniform effects. But this dismissal contains a subtle mistake. It assumes that because change is universal, it must also be inevitable in every form it takes. The truth is more nuanced. Many of the changes that feel like aging are not the passage of time itself. They are the body signaling that its internal environment has shifted, that systems which once operated with abundance are now operating with less. The mistake is treating these signals as permanent when they are often simply requests. Requests for different support, for different materials, for different conditions. What follows is an exploration of what those requests mean, what the body actually needs to continue its work of renewal, and why understanding this distinction changes everything about how we experience the later decades. You are listening to the Longevity Library, where we archive the wisdom of healthy aging. The architecture of vitality. Understanding the body's longevity systems. There comes a moment, often quietly, when a person notices that the body no longer responds quite as it once did. Perhaps it is the skin that has lost some of its former resilience, or hair that seems thinner when gathered between the fingers. Maybe it is the subtle realization that energy does not rebound as quickly after a poor night's sleep, or that recovery from a long walk takes a day longer than it used to. These observations are not signs of failure. They are not evidence of neglect or personal shortcoming. They are simply the body communicating its changing circumstances, signaling that the systems which have operated so reliably for decades are now navigating a different biological terrain. For women, this terrain shifts most noticeably in the years following menopause. The decline in estrogen, a hormone that once supported everything from skin thickness to cardiovascular flexibility, creates a cascade of adjustments throughout the entire organism. For men, the changes tend to be more gradual. A slow decline in testosterone and growth hormone that subtly alters body composition, recovery capacity, and tissue resilience. But regardless of gender, the underlying reality is the same. Aging is not merely a cosmetic process, not simply the accumulation of wrinkles or the graying of hair. It is a systemic reorganization, a fundamental shift in how the body builds, maintains, and repairs itself. This understanding forms the foundation of a more useful perspective on growing older. If aging were only about the surface, then surface-level interventions might suffice. But because aging reaches into the deepest structures of the body, into the cells, the blood vessels, the very machinery of metabolism, any meaningful approach to vitality must operate at the same depth. It must address not just how we look, but how we function. Not just the outer reflection, but the inner architecture that supports it. The following pages explore this architecture in detail. They examine the systems that determine how we age, the nutrients that support those systems, the habits that either strengthen or undermine them, and the patterns of living that have allowed certain populations around the world to maintain vitality well into advanced age. This is not a guide to reversing time or cheating biology. It is an exploration of what the body actually needs to function well, and how we might provide those needs with greater intention and understanding. Part 1. The biology of built environment. Every structure requires a foundation. A house built on unstable ground will eventually show cracks in its walls, no matter how carefully the paint is applied. The same principle applies to the human body. The visible signs of aging, the lines in the skin, the brittleness of nails, The thinning of hair are often the final expression of processes that began much deeper in the infrastructure that supports these outer tissues. This infrastructure is composed of several interrelated systems. There is the vascular network, the intricate web of blood vessels that delivers oxygen and nutrients to every cell and carries away metabolic waste. There is the extracellular matrix, the complex mesh of proteins including collagen and elastin that gives tissues their structure and resilience. There is the cellular membrane, the delicate boundary that regulates what enters and leaves each cell. And there is the metabolic machinery within cells that converts food into energy and building materials. When these deeper systems function well, the outer tissues reflect that health. Skin appears plump and well-nourished because its underlying blood supply is robust. Hair grows strong because the follicles receive adequate protein and minerals. Nails remain intact because the keratin structure is properly formed. But when the deeper systems begin to falter, the outer tissues are the first to show the strain. This is why topical approaches to aging have inherent limitations. A moisturizer can temporarily improve the appearance of dry skin by adding lipids to the outer layer, but it cannot address the vascular changes that may be limiting nutrient delivery to that same skin. A serum containing peptides may temporarily plump fine lines, but it cannot correct the cellular energy deficits that slow the production of new collagen. These products work on the surface because that is where they are applied, but the forces that shape the surface originate much deeper. The challenge, then, is to understand what the deeper systems require to function optimally, and to provide those requirements consistently over time. This is not a matter of finding a single miracle nutrient or a revolutionary treatment. It is a matter of identifying the fundamental supports that the body has always needed, and ensuring that those supports remain adequate as the body's efficiency in using them naturally declines. Part 2. The question of minerals and their movement. Among the most critical yet least discussed aspects of internal infrastructure is the management of minerals. Minerals are not merely passive components of the body. They are active participants in countless physiological processes. Calcium, for example, is essential for bone strength, but it is equally essential for muscle contraction, nerve transmission, and blood clotting. The body maintains strict control over calcium levels because both too little and too much in the wrong places can create serious problems. This control system relies on several proteins that act as traffic directors, guiding calcium to where it is needed and keeping it away from where it could cause harm. In bone, calcium is incorporated into the crystalline structure that gives the skeleton its rigidity. In the blood, calcium is carefully regulated to maintain the precise concentration required for normal function. But calcium also has a tendency to deposit in places where it does not belong, in the walls of arteries, for instance, or in other soft tissues. When calcium accumulates in blood vessels, it contributes to a process of stiffening. Arteries that were once flexible and responsive become more rigid, less able to expand and contract with each heartbeat. This vascular stiffness has implications far beyond the circulatory system itself. The tiny blood vessels that supply the skin, the capillaries that bring oxygen and nutrients to the outermost layers of the body, are part of this same network. When larger vessels stiffen, the microcirculation often follows suit. And when the microcirculation becomes less efficient, the skin receives fewer of the resources it needs to maintain its structure and appearance. This connection between vascular health and skin health is often overlooked in conversations about aging. The focus tends to remain on the skin itself, on collagen content, on moisture levels, on the depth of lines and wrinkles. But the skin is not an isolated organ. It is the outermost expression of the entire organism, and its condition reflects the state of everything beneath it. Skin that appears thin, dry, or lacking in bounce may be signaling not a failure of the skin itself, but a limitation in the vascular supply that nourishes it. The question then becomes, what supports healthy mineral management? What allows the body to direct calcium appropriately? Preserving bone density while protecting soft tissues from calcification. Research points to a family of proteins that require activation by a specific nutrient. These proteins, once activated, bind calcium and escort it to its proper destinations. Without adequate activation, they remain dormant, and calcium management becomes less precise. This nutrient is found in certain fermented foods, particularly in traditional diets that include fermented soybeans or aged cheeses. It is also produced by bacteria in the human gut, though the amount produced varies considerably from person to person. For many individuals, dietary intake may be insufficient to fully support the calcium management system, particularly as the body's overall efficiency declines with age. The implications of this go beyond skin health. Proper calcium management is essential for maintaining bone density, for protecting against the vascular stiffening that contributes to cardiovascular changes, and for preserving the flexibility of connective tissues throughout the body. Supporting this system is not about treating a specific condition. It is about maintaining the infrastructure upon which all other systems depend. Part 3. Cellular protection and the oxidative challenge. If mineral management addresses the infrastructure between cells, another process addresses the integrity of the cells themselves. Every cell in the body is constantly exposed to oxidative stress, a term that describes the damage caused by unstable molecules known as free radicals. These molecules are produced naturally as byproducts of metabolism, but they are also generated by external factors including ultraviolet radiation, pollution, and certain dietary components. Free radicals are not inherently harmful. The body uses them in controlled ways as signaling molecules and as part of the immune response. Problems arise when their production exceeds the body's ability to neutralize them. This imbalance, known as oxidative stress, damages cellular components including membranes, proteins, and even DNA. Over time, this damage accumulates and contributes to the functional decline associated with aging. The cell membrane is particularly vulnerable to oxidative damage. This membrane is not merely a passive barrier. It is a dynamic structure that regulates what enters and leaves the cell, facilitates communication with other cells, and participates in numerous metabolic processes. When the membrane is damaged by free radicals, all of these functions become less efficient. The cell may struggle to take up nutrients, to eliminate waste, or to respond appropriately to hormonal signals. Different antioxidants protect different parts of the cell. Some are water-soluble and operate in the interior of the cell, while others are fat-soluble and protect the membrane. One particular antioxidant has attracted research attention because of its unique molecular structure. Unlike most antioxidants, which protect either the interior or the membrane, this compound is long enough to span the entire membrane, protecting both its inner and outer layers. It positions itself like a shield, intercepting free radicals before they can initiate the chain reactions that damage cellular structures. This compound is found naturally in certain marine organisms, particularly those that live in environments with high oxidative stress. Microalgae produce it to protect themselves from intense sunlight and other environmental challenges. When animals such as salmon or shrimp consume these algae, the compound accumulates in their tissues, which is why wild salmon have a characteristic pinkish hue. Research on this compound has explored its effects on skin health specifically. In controlled studies, individuals who took a daily supplement showed measurable improvements in skin moisture, elasticity, and the appearance of fine lines after several weeks. These improvements are thought to result from the compound's ability to protect skin cells from the oxidative damage caused by everyday UV exposure and other environmental stressors. It is important to understand what this protection does and does not provide. It does not block UV radiation in the way that sunscreen does. Sunscreen works by absorbing or reflecting UV rays before they penetrate the skin. This compound works from within, neutralizing the oxidative effects of whatever radiation does reach the skin cells. The two approaches are complementary rather than competitive. Sunscreen reduces the initial assault. This compound helps the skin recover from whatever assault remains. The broader significance of this lies in what it reveals about the aging process. Oxidative damage is not a rare or exceptional event. It is a constant, ongoing feature of being alive in an oxygen-rich environment. The body has its own antioxidant systems, but these systems become less efficient with age. Providing additional support from outside sources is not about fixing a deficiency. It is about supplementing the body's natural defenses as they gradually lose some of their youthful capacity. Part 4. The structural proteins and their building blocks. Between the infrastructure of mineral management and the protection of cellular integrity lies the question of structure itself. The body contains numerous structural proteins that give form and resilience to its various tissues. Collagen provides the scaffolding for skin, bones, tendons, and ligaments. Elastin allows tissues to stretch and return to their original shape. Keratin forms the tough, protective matrix of hair, nails, and the outer layer of skin. These proteins are not static. They are constantly being broken down and rebuilt in a process of turnover that continues throughout life. In youth, the rate of production generally matches or exceeds the rate of breakdown, allowing tissues to maintain their structure and function. With age, the balance shifts. Production slows. Breakdown continues, and tissues gradually lose some of their former integrity. This is why hair may become thinner and more prone to breakage. It is why nails may develop ridges, split more easily, or fail to grow as long as they once did. It is why skin may feel less resilient, why it may take longer to heal from minor injuries, why the overall appearance of the body's outer tissues may change in ways that are difficult to reverse with surface treatments alone. Keratin, the protein that forms hair and nails, requires specific nutrients for its production. Among the most important is a B vitamin that serves as a cofactor in the metabolic pathways that convert amino acids into structural proteins. Without adequate amounts of this vitamin, the body's ability to synthesize keratin is impaired. Hair follicles produce weaker strands. Nail matrices produce thinner, more brittle plates. The outer layer of skin may not regenerate as efficiently, leading to a rougher texture and slower healing. This vitamin is found in many common foods. Eggs are a particularly good source, especially the yolks. Nuts and seeds contain it in smaller amounts, as do sweet potatoes and certain other vegetables. However, several factors can affect the body's ability to obtain enough from diet alone. Cooking can degrade some of the vitamin content. Digestive changes that accompany aging can reduce absorption. And individual variations in metabolism can influence how efficiently the body uses whatever amount is consumed. The relationship between this vitamin and hair or nail health has been documented in clinical observations. Individuals with low levels often report increased hair shedding and nail brittleness. When levels are restored, these symptoms frequently improve. The improvement is not immediate because hair and nails grow slowly. A nail may take 3 to 6 months to grow from cuticle to tip, so the benefits of increased vitamin intake may not become visible until a full growth cycle has been completed. This lag time is important to understand because it shapes expectations. If someone begins supporting their keratin production more effectively, they will not see stronger nails at the tips overnight. They will need to wait for the new growth to emerge. For the old, weaker tissue to be gradually replaced by tissue formed under better conditions. This is not a failure of the intervention, it is simply the pace at which the body operates. The broader lesson is that structural proteins require both the right building blocks and the right conditions for their synthesis. Amino acids from dietary protein provide the raw materials. B vitamins and other cofactors enable the metabolic machinery to assemble those materials correctly. Hydration ensures that the cellular environment supports efficient production. And adequate rest allows the body to dedicate energy to maintenance and repair rather than to immediate demands. Part 5. The foundational practices that enable everything else. Nutrients do not operate in isolation. They function within a complex biological system that is itself influenced by numerous factors. The same vitamin that supports keratin production will be used more effectively in a well-hydrated body than in a dehydrated one. The same antioxidant that protects cell membranes will be more available to tissues when circulation is robust. The same mineral management system will function better when the body is in a state of rest rather than chronic stress. This is why no nutrient, no matter how well-researched or appropriately dosed, can compensate for the absence of foundational health practices. These practices are not exciting. They do not make for dramatic headlines or compelling marketing copy, but they form the substrate upon which all other interventions depend. Without them, even the most sophisticated approaches will yield disappointing results. Hydration is perhaps the most fundamental of these practices. Water is the medium in which all cellular processes occur. It transports nutrients into cells and carries waste products away. It participates in countless chemical reactions. It maintains the structure of proteins and the fluidity of cell membranes. When hydration is inadequate, every system in the body operates less efficiently. The skin shows this quickly because it is the largest organ and the one most exposed to the environment. But the effects extend far deeper, influencing everything from cognitive function to joint health to digestive efficiency. The amount of water needed varies from person to person depending on body size, activity level, climate, and diet. A general guideline of 6 to 8 glasses per day is reasonable for most people. But thirst is also a reliable indicator. What matters more than the exact quantity is the consistency. Sipping water throughout the day maintains hydration more effectively than drinking large amounts infrequently. And obtaining water from foods, soups, fruits, vegetables contributes to overall fluid intake while also providing nutrients. Movement is another foundational practice with effects that ripple through the entire organism. Physical activity stimulates circulation, delivering oxygen and nutrients to tissues and removing metabolic waste. It supports lymphatic drainage, which is essential for immune function and tissue health. It maintains muscle mass, which is metabolically active tissue that helps regulate blood sugar and supports overall metabolic health. It preserves joint function and bone density. It even influences gene expression in ways that favor longevity. The type of movement matters less than the consistency. Walking is excellent and accessible to most people. Strength training becomes increasingly important with age because it directly addresses the loss of muscle mass that otherwise occurs. Activities that challenge balance, such as Tai Chi or simple standing exercises, help maintain the neuromuscular coordination that prevents falls. Flexibility work keeps joints mobile and reduces the risk of injury. A complete approach includes elements of all these. But any movement is better than none, and more movement is generally better than less. Light exposure, particularly in the morning, serves as a critical regulator of circadian rhythms. The body's internal clock, which governs sleep-wake cycles, hormone release, and numerous other processes, is reset each day by exposure to light. Morning light is especially effective for this purpose. Even 10 to 15 minutes of gentle sunlight shortly after waking helps synchronize the body's rhythms, promoting better sleep at night and more stable energy during the day. This same exposure stimulates the production of vitamin D in the skin. Vitamin D is actually a hormone rather than a true vitamin, and it plays roles throughout the body. It supports calcium absorption, which is essential for bone health. It modulates immune function. It influences mood and cognitive function. Many people have inadequate vitamin D levels, particularly those who live at northern latitudes, spend most of their time indoors, or consistently use sunscreen. Brief. Regular sun exposure on unprotected skin helps maintain adequate levels, though the amount needed varies with skin type and latitude. Sleep is when the body performs most of its maintenance and repair. During deep sleep, growth hormone is released, stimulating tissue repair and regeneration. Collagen production increases. Cellular waste products are cleared from the brain. Memories are consolidated. Immune function is supported. When sleep is chronically insufficient or disrupted, these processes are compromised. The skin looks less rested because it is less rested. Cognitive function declines. Recovery from activity takes longer. Vulnerability to illness increases. Protecting sleep means protecting both quantity and quality. 7 to 8 hours per night is a reasonable target for most adults. Consistency matters. Going to bed and waking at similar times each day reinforces the circadian rhythm. The sleep environment matters. A cool, dark, quiet room supports deeper sleep. And pre-sleep habits matter. Reducing exposure to bright screens in the evening. Avoiding large meals close to bedtime. And developing a relaxing bedtime routine all contribute to better rest. Stress management may be the most overlooked of all foundational practices. Chronic stress elevates cortisol, a hormone that, when persistently high, has widespread negative effects. Cortisol breaks down tissues, including collagen and muscle. It promotes fat storage, particularly in the abdominal area. It impairs immune function. It disrupts sleep. It contributes to inflammation. In short, chronic stress accelerates many of the very processes that aging seeks to manage. Managing stress does not require eliminating all sources of stress from life, which would be neither possible nor desirable. It requires developing the capacity to return to a state of calm after stress has occurred. This capacity is built through practices that activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the branch of the nervous system that governs rest and digestion. Deep breathing, meditation, time in nature, gentle movement, social connection, engaging in hobbies. All of these activities help shift the body out of stress mode and into repair mode. Even a few minutes of deliberate calm each day can make a measurable difference over time. Part 6. Patterns from populations that age well. The principles discussed so far are supported by laboratory research and clinical observation, but they also find expression in the lived experience of populations around the world where people consistently maintain vitality into advanced age. These populations have been studied extensively by researchers seeking to understand the factors that contribute to healthy aging. While each group has its unique characteristics, certain patterns recur across different cultures and geographies. One such pattern is the consumption of whole, minimally processed foods. In these populations, food is not a collection of isolated nutrients, but a complex matrix of interacting compounds. Vegetables, fruits, legumes, whole grains, nuts, and seeds form the foundation of the diet. Animal foods, when consumed, are often used in smaller quantities, as flavorings or occasional additions rather than as the centerpiece of every meal. This pattern of eating provides a broad array of vitamins, minerals, fiber, and phytonutrients that support multiple body systems simultaneously. Another recurring pattern is the inclusion of fermented foods in the diet. Fermentation is an ancient food preservation technique that also transforms the nutritional characteristics of foods. The bacteria involved in fermentation produce compounds that are not present in the original ingredients. They also break down some components that can be difficult to digest, making nutrients more available. In many traditional diets, some form of fermented food appears regularly. Fermented vegetables in parts of Europe and Asia. Fermented dairy in the Caucasus and parts of Africa. Fermented soy in Japan. Fermented grains in various forms across Africa. Physical activity in these populations is not structured exercise in the modern sense, but rather movement integrated into daily life. People walk as a means of transportation. They tend gardens. They perform manual tasks as part of their regular routines. They do not sit for extended periods. This pattern of nearly constant low-level activity maintains metabolic health, supports joint function, and preserves muscle mass without the need for dedicated workout sessions. Social connection is another consistent feature. People in these populations remain embedded in communities. They interact with neighbors. They maintain relationships across generations. They have a sense of belonging and purpose that extends beyond themselves. This social fabric provides emotional support, cognitive stimulation, and practical assistance. It also creates a sense of accountability and meaning that contributes to overall well-being. Purpose, in fact, emerges as a significant factor in many studies of healthy aging. People who have a reason to get up in the morning, whether that reason is caring for others, pursuing a creative endeavor, contributing to their community, or simply tending a garden, tend to maintain their health longer than those who lack such purpose. Purpose provides motivation to engage in healthy behaviors, to recover from setbacks, to remain engaged with life. It is not a nutrient or a habit, but something more fundamental, a sense that one's life continues to matter. These population observations do not prescribe a specific diet or routine. They suggest directions rather than mandates. They indicate that certain patterns of living have supported human health for generations, and that departing too far from these patterns may have consequences. The challenge for individuals is not to replicate any particular culture, but to extract the principles that underlie these diverse expressions and apply them in ways that fit their own circumstances. Part 7. Integrating knowledge into daily life. Understanding the systems that support healthy aging is one thing. Translating that understanding into consistent action is another. The gap between knowledge and behavior is where many well-intentioned efforts falter. People learn what they should do, intend to do it, and then find that daily life intervenes. Habits are hard to change. Time is limited. Motivation fluctuates. And the immediate demands of life crowd out the longer-term investments. Bridging this gap requires a shift in perspective. Instead of viewing healthy practices as a set of obligations to be fulfilled, it may be more useful to view them as investments in the only body we will ever have. Each glass of water is an investment in cellular function. Each walk is an investment in circulation and muscle. Each serving of vegetables is an investment in the nutrient supply that every organ requires. Each night of adequate sleep is an investment in repair and recovery. Each moment of calm is an investment in the nervous system that regulates everything else. From this perspective, the goal is not perfection, but consistency. Missing a day of movement does not undo the benefits of weeks of regular activity. An occasional indulgence does not negate a fundamentally sound diet. The body is resilient and forgiving. It responds to the overall pattern rather than to isolated events. What matters is that the pattern, over time, leans in the direction of support rather than depletion. This is why sustainable approaches are more effective than dramatic ones. A complete overhaul of diet and lifestyle may last for a few weeks, but rarely endures. Small, incremental changes, integrated gradually into existing routines, are more likely to persist. Adding a serving of vegetables to one meal each day, taking a short walk after dinner, going to bed 15 minutes earlier, drinking a glass of water upon waking. These small shifts, repeated consistently, accumulate into significant change over months and years. Tracking progress can support consistency, but the tracking should serve the behavior rather than becoming an end in itself. Simple observations: how skin feels, how energy levels fluctuate, how sleep quality varies, provide feedback that can guide adjustments. Photographs taken in consistent lighting can reveal changes too gradual to notice day to day. Notes about how clothes fit or how far walks have become can document improvements that might otherwise go unremarked. The purpose of tracking is not to create a record for its own sake, but to maintain awareness and motivation. Patience is essential. The body operates on its own timescale, which is not the timescale of human impatience. Hair grows slowly. Nails grow slowly. The effects of improved nutrition on skin structure take time to become visible. The benefits of consistent movement on metabolic health accumulate gradually. The impact of better sleep on cognitive function emerges over weeks of improved rest. Expecting rapid transformation sets the stage for disappointment. Expecting gradual improvement creates the conditions for sustained effort. Community can support consistency, though the form of that community varies widely. For some, it means exercising with a friend, which provides accountability and makes the activity more enjoyable. For others, it means sharing meals with family, which reinforces healthy eating patterns. For still others, it means participating in groups organized around shared interests, walking groups, gardening clubs, book discussions that incidentally support health while primarily serving social connection. The common element is the presence of others who share values and provide encouragement. Part 8. The question of supplements in context. Given the complexity of obtaining all necessary nutrients from food alone, and given the changes in absorption and metabolism that accompany aging, supplements have a legitimate role in supporting health. The question is not whether to use them, but how to use them wisely, as part of a comprehensive approach rather than as a substitute for the foundations discussed earlier. Supplements are most appropriately viewed as reinforcements for an already sound foundation. They can provide nutrients that are difficult to obtain in adequate amounts from food, either because the foods containing them are not commonly consumed or because individual circumstances increase requirements. They can compensate for reduced absorption efficiency that often accompanies aging. They can provide therapeutic levels of certain compounds that exceed what food alone can reasonably supply. But supplements cannot replace the complex matrix of nutrients found in whole foods. A vitamin isolated in a capsule does not behave identically to that same vitamin embedded in a vegetable, surrounded by fiber and accompanying compounds that influence its absorption and utilization. Food provides not just individual nutrients, but the context in which those nutrients function optimally. Supplements should add to that context, not attempt to replace it. Nor can supplements compensate for the absence of foundational practices. No amount of targeted nutrients will offset the effects of chronic dehydration, inadequate movement, poor sleep, or unmanaged stress. The supplements may be present in the body, but the conditions for their effective use are not. This is why people sometimes invest in extensive supplementation without seeing corresponding results. They are providing the raw materials without ensuring that the factory is operating properly. When supplements are used, quality matters. The supplement industry is not uniformly regulated, and products vary widely in their composition, purity, and actual content of the claimed ingredients. Choosing products from reputable manufacturers who test their products and make the results available provides some assurance of quality. Simple formulations are often preferable to complex blends because they allow for more precise adjustment and make it easier to identify the source of any effects. Dosage is a consideration that should be guided by research rather than marketing. For many nutrients, there is a range within which benefits have been observed and above which little additional benefit accrues. More is not necessarily better, and for some nutrients, excessive intake can create problems. The goal is to provide adequate support, not to achieve the highest possible level. The timing of supplements can affect their utilization. Fat-soluble nutrients are best absorbed when taken with meals containing fat. Water-soluble nutrients can be taken with or without food, though taking them with meals may reduce the likelihood of digestive upset. Some nutrients compete for absorption and are better taken at different times. Simple routines are easier to maintain consistently than complex ones, and consistency matters more than perfect timing. Part 9. The rhythm of renewal. There is a rhythm to how the body renews itself, a pattern of breakdown and repair that continues throughout life. Understanding this rhythm can help align interventions with the body's natural processes, working with rather than against the grain of biology. During the day, activity and exposure to environmental stressors create wear and tear at the cellular level. Free radicals are generated. Structural proteins sustain minor damage. Metabolic processes produce waste that must be cleared. This is not failure. It is the normal operation of a living organism engaged with its environment. During the night, the body shifts into repair mode. The resources that were directed toward activity during the day are redirected toward maintenance. Cells perform quality control, identifying and recycling damaged components. Repair enzymes fix damaged DNA. New proteins are synthesized to replace those that have worn out. Waste products accumulated during the day are cleared. Growth hormone supports tissue regeneration. This day-night cycle is the most fundamental rhythm of renewal. But longer cycles also operate. Skin cells turn over completely over a period of weeks. Nails grow out over months. The skeleton remodels itself over years. Each tissue operates on its own timescale, which means that the benefits of improved support become apparent at different times for different tissues. Quick results are not always possible, and the absence of quick results does not mean the absence of benefit. Aligning with these rhythms means respecting their pace. It means providing support consistently, day after day, trusting that the body is using that support even when changes are not immediately visible. It means not becoming discouraged when improvement seems slow, because slow is how the body works. It means recognizing that the cumulative effect of small, consistent actions over time is the only path to significant, lasting change. This perspective also suggests a different relationship with aging itself. If aging is viewed as a problem to be solved, then any decline is a failure. Any change is a loss. But if aging is viewed as a natural process of continuous renewal, then the goal shifts from preventing change to supporting the body through change. The question is not how to stop the clock, but how to ensure that the body has what it needs to continue its work of maintenance and repair for as long as possible. Part 10. The deeper dimensions, beyond the nutrients and the habits, beyond the science and the strategies. There are dimensions of aging that are not captured by any biological measurement. These are the qualities that give life its texture and meaning, that make the difference between merely surviving and genuinely thriving. Curiosity is one such quality. The inclination to remain interested in the world, to ask questions, to learn new things, to engage with ideas and experiences. This inclination keeps the mind flexible and the spirit engaged. It does not require formal education or exceptional intellect. It requires only the willingness to remain open, to wonder, to explore. Connection is another. The web of relationships that binds us to others, family, friends, neighbors, community, provides support in both directions. It gives us people to care for and people who care for us. It creates a sense of belonging that buffers against the isolation that can otherwise accompany aging. It reminds us that we are part of something larger than ourselves. Gratitude, cultivated as a practice rather than merely an occasional feeling, shifts attention from what is lacking to what is present. It does not deny difficulties or losses. It simply balances the perspective, acknowledging the good alongside the challenging. Research suggests that people who regularly practice gratitude report greater well-being, better sleep, and stronger relationships. It is a practice available to anyone, requiring no special equipment or training. Purpose, already mentioned, deserves emphasis. Purpose is not necessarily grand or dramatic. It can be as simple as tending a garden, as quiet as maintaining a home, as private as pursuing a creative interest, as communal as volunteering. What matters is that it provides a reason to get up in the morning, a direction for energy and attention, a sense that one's presence in the world matters. These qualities do not replace the biological foundations of health. They complement them. A person who eats well, moves adequately, sleeps sufficiently, and manages stress will have a body that functions well. But a person who also maintains curiosity, connection, gratitude, and purpose will have a life that feels worth living. The two are not separate. They intertwine. Purpose motivates the walk. Connection makes the meal meaningful. Gratitude transforms the ordinary into the precious. Part 11. A calm conclusion. The body that has carried you through decades of life deserves the same care and attention you would give to anything you value deeply. It has navigated countless challenges, recovered from injuries and illnesses, adapted to changing circumstances, and continued to function through it all. It asks not for perfection, but for support, for the raw materials it needs to do its work, for the conditions that allow it to rest and repair, for the respect of being treated as the irreplaceable instrument it is. The science of longevity offers guidance about what that support might look like. It points toward the nutrients that enable structural proteins to be built, the compounds that protect cells from oxidative damage, the systems that manage minerals and maintain vascular flexibility. It identifies the habits that multiply the effectiveness of these nutrients: hydration, movement, light, sleep, stress management. It observes the patterns of populations that have aged well and extracts principles that can be adapted to individual circumstances. But science does not prescribe a single path. It illuminates possibilities. It suggests directions. It provides information that each person can use to make their own decisions, based on their own values, circumstances, and preferences. The goal is not to follow a rigid protocol, but to develop a personal approach that is sustainable, effective, and aligned with what matters most. For some, this will mean focusing on nutrition, ensuring that each meal provides the broad array of compounds the body needs. For others, it will mean prioritizing movement, finding ways to stay active that are enjoyable and therefore sustainable. For still others, it will mean attending to rest and recovery, protecting the sleep that enables everything else. For most, it will mean some combination of all these, adjusted over time as circumstances change and as experience reveals what works best. The changes that result from this approach will not be dramatic from one day to the next. They will accumulate gradually, like interest on a long-term investment. The skin will not transform overnight, but over months it may regain some of its former resilience. The hair will not thicken immediately, but over time new growth may be stronger. The energy may not rebound suddenly, but gradually the days may feel less demanding, the recovery faster, the capacity greater. What accumulates along with these physical changes is something less visible but equally valuable. A sense of agency, of being an active participant in one's own aging rather than a passive observer of decline. This sense comes not from controlling outcomes, which is ultimately beyond anyone's power, but from showing up consistently, from making choices that honor the body, from engaging in the process with awareness and intention. The body will continue to change. This is the nature of being alive. But the quality of those changes, the texture of the experience, the capacity to continue doing what matters, these are influenced by how we live each day. The architecture of vitality is built not in grand gestures, but in small, repeated choices. A glass of water, a walk around the block, a serving of vegetables, an early bedtime, a moment of calm. These are not sacrifices. They are investments. And like all wise investments, they pay dividends over time. The body that has carried you through decades of life asks not for perfection, but for presence. It asks that you show up consistently with the materials it needs, the conditions it requires, the respect it deserves. The changes you seek will not arrive overnight. They will accumulate gradually, like interest on a long-term investment, like rings on a tree, like the slow and steady work of a body that knows exactly what to do when given half a chance. What matters is not the speed, but the direction. Not the perfection, but the pattern. If this exploration has stirred something in you, a question, a memory, a new consideration, we would be honored if you shared it in the comments. Your reflections become part of this library, this growing archive of what it means to age with awareness and intention. And if you have not yet subscribed, we invite you to join this community of listeners who believe that growing older is not a problem to be solved, but a process to be supported. Until next time, may you move through your days with curiosity, with gratitude, and with the quiet confidence that comes from understanding. This is the Longevity Library. Listen, learn, and live longer.